We're live on Facebook and Instagram.
Hello. Are we ready to go?
They're telling our followers that we've started a live
right.
video.
Hi guys, it's Hillary from the Cookie Countess. How are you? All right, I'm gonna put this down. I had to break it out because it's my new favorite accessory, but I'm gonna put this down. All right, so thanks for joining us on our first day of our live week. Are we connected, everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I've got some people climbing.
I've got Sarah is running our Facebook Live and Emily is on Instagram. So they will help field any questions you have for me. They'll give me some questions and they might also answer them for me. So welcome. So today I'm going to talk about some airbrushing and just using some really simple techniques. I have some examples here that I made and we're going to redo these. So to do Easter eggs, this is a great idea that doesn't require a whole lot of effort, doesn't require you to mix a lot of icing colors, which is great, and could be done really last minute, which I also love because I'm kind of a last minute girl. I'm going to show you some stenciling techniques, some tips. You can ask questions as we go. All right, how are we doing?
A lot of hellos and good mornings and highs. Yes.
All right, it's noon here though, so it's afternoon here. So where are you watching from? You guys can tell us. And
I think it sounds like a lot of people on the West Coast from all the good mornings.
Thank you. Well, I hope that I can make your morning coffee even more exciting. It's my favorite part of the morning for sure. All right, so I'm using two colors today. I'm gonna move this in a little bit. I'm using Outrageously Orange and Preppy Pink, which are these two colors here, two of my favorites. And I'm using the Royal Max airbrush machine. So one of the best features of this machine, if you haven't seen it before, is that it has a quick connect. So you can use two different guns. Comes with one gun, you can buy extra guns, but this quick connect makes it really easy to swap out colors. And it has two gun holders integrated into the machine. So it's nice when you're doing some colorful cookies and you want to bounce back and forth between colors, maybe while layers dry, that kind of thing. The Royal Max makes it really, really easy to do that. So let's start. Okay.
We have a lot of people watching from a lot of different places.
Nice.
Puerto Rico, South Dakota, someone from Rhode Island, Sophie Sweets, California, Brooklyn, New Jersey, Canada.
Nice.
We got Canada over here on Facebook too.
Wow. All right. Hey, so one of the first things I want to show you is just how I made these cookies. So everything you see was iced with white. And then this simple technique lets it be, give you a, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm losing my mind.
Monotone?
Monotone. Ding, ding, ding. Yes, using just the same color. So instead of like flooding this cookie with lavender and then airbrushing with purple, we just have to use the same airbrush color and you're done in 5 seconds. So it's like way easier than mixing all those colors. Like we know how great colorful cookies are, but we also know how much work it is to flood a million cookies in a million different colors. So this is a great technique for that. So for something like this, I will do it with this cute little rickrack here. All right, so I've got my Stencil Genie. If you guys haven't seen a Stencil Genie before, it is a 2-piece stencil holder. Whoop. Emily's taking down the whole display here. Now we have extension cord very precariously over here. It's a 2-piece stencil holder. It has magnets in the corners. You put your stencil in the middle. This pops right on. So now you have this very secure way to hold your stencil. So for this one, I'm using eggs today, and I'm just going to show you the difference real quick. This is the chicken egg. This is the duck egg. If you know which one came first, you win a prize now. So the duck egg we recently came out with, so I just wanted to show you the difference. So I'm going to use both today. So this one's the duck egg. So for this, just put your stencil down wherever you want it. A great thing about this technique too is that if you get a little bit of overspray, it doesn't matter. Look at that. Because you're going to spray over that anyway. I could put my glasses on. When people ask me how old I am, and then I look around my house and I have reading glasses on every surface, that's how old I am.
Lorna Putman likes your shorter hair.
Aw, thank you, Lorna. I like it too. I'm much less, except I'm still shedding. I'm much less high maintenance now these days. All right, so I always keep a little paper towel next to me when I start my airbrush machine. You always want to give it a little spray. Don't have your cookie be the first thing you spray, because if there's any sort of air bubble or clog or something, maybe a little bit of water left in the tip from when you just washed it, just in a side tip, always spray it on a piece of paper. So I have my max all the way up to high, and that little rattle you hear is just from the other gun in it. But I have it on high, and then I'm gonna control my spray just by how much I pull back this trigger. So I say this in all my videos, but it's worth saying again. So this is only pull back a little, this is pull back a lot. So you're doing most of the control. Don't rely on just turning the machine up or down to control the spray. So I'll add a little more color in here. All right, so this is the Preppy Pink. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna aim straight down, and I'm only pulling back that trigger just a little bit, nice and back and forth. I'm gonna do a light layer and then stop. Then I'm gonna pop that off. So it's super cute as is. You could also just stop here, so it's white with pink. Nothing wrong with that. But if you wanna have this pink on pink look, right away you can go back in and do a light coat over the whole thing. Right? Isn't that cute? So now you have a pink on pink cookie, but you didn't have to mix any pink icing. Isn't that amazing?
Amazing.
Amazing, right?
Divine Delectable said that pink is life.
You know,
all caps.
She is not wrong. She's a smart lady.
Somebody talked about our gray matte. She has it and she loves it. Silicone counter cover.
Yes. Oh my god, I can't live without the gray matte, I swear.
Especially for airbrush.
All right, so while I still have my pink going in my gun, I'm gonna do a couple other things. Pink. So this one I'm gonna do, this is our Country Flower stencil, which we've had forever, but I'm gonna show you how to do it with two different colors and end up with this pattern, which is kind of a different style pattern. Isn't that cute? So one-piece stencils can also turn into two-piece stencils if you want them to. You can get creative on all this stuff. So, and then this same stencil I used with the technique we just did over here on this one. So it's like a monochrome look. I'll leave that here if you want. All right, so when you do your stencils, especially if it has a kind of a geometric pattern, you know, take an extra minute to line up where you want it. So I'm looking at the egg shape. I want to make sure I have something centered right at the top of the egg, make sure it's straight. You know, don't just like plop it down because you might not be happy with where it landed. So I'm going to take a minute to do that here. And then I'm going to go in with my pink again. This doesn't take much because there's not a lot of opening here. Just lightly do this. And I'm going to set this aside for a second. I'm going to come back to that one. Okay, super cute.
Robin wants to know what the name of our airbrush machine is, and that's
The
our
Royal Max. All right, the next one I'm gonna do is a couple things I'm gonna do with the wide stripe. So you can see I'm, same thing, just popping the stencils in and out of the Stencil Genie, super easy. So for this one, I'm gonna show you the same technique again with just a stripe, and then we're gonna do two other stripes like this technique here. So first one I'm gonna do is, again, we're just gonna stencil. Now you'll notice I really go light. I'm barely pulling back on this trigger. You're aiming straight down. And it's also good for me to point out that if you know you're going to be stenciling, especially, you really want your flood icing to be as flat as possible. So if you're flood icing, if you haven't mastered the flat work on that before you start stenciling, because it'll just save you from overspray. If your flood icing has a lot of dips and valleys, it'll cause some issues when you're stenciling. So make sure you work on that as just something that you know, when you're a beginner, you always want your flood icing to be flat, but we're gonna do our best to get it as flat as possible.
Barb wants to know when you would use a silk screen.
So we have our magic stencil screen, which is not a silk screen. It's a mesh, and it's a metal mesh. And I would use it if I was worried about the stripes being really crisp, if that was something I ran into trouble with, or if you had a lot to do, you might want to use this, like, you can get more use out of the stencil when you use the stencil screen, if that makes sense. So for these, because I'm going to be doing other stuff, and and I know my flood icing's flat, I'm not too worried about it, but the stencil screen is really good, especially if you tend to get under spray. All right, so for this one, I'm going to do a diagonal stripe. So again, this is the same stencil. I'm just turning it on the diagonal. And then I'm gonna do one more, I'll do a small one, and this one I'm gonna do just that tone on tone. So I'm gonna pull this off, and then I'm just gonna spray it again really lightly. So now I have my two-tone stripe, and then I'm gonna come back and do these with another technique. How are we doing with questions? Got questions?
Good so far.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna show you, this is the quick connect on the Royal Max. So you just have to pull down and squeeze this a little bit. This pops off, so this way you can change out your colors. I'm gonna put that pink gun in the back of my machine, and now this just goes, oops, right here. So make sure this already has color in it, so make sure you keep it up and down. I was very concerned I was going to spill that just now. All right, so now I've got my orange, but I can go back and forth to the pink, and it just saves you time from having to clean out your gun if you want to go back and forth. If you only have one gun, do your best to set up a workflow so you do everything that you can that uses that first color before you move on to the second color. But having the two guns makes it really easy to switch back and forth, so you don't have to worry about that workflow, if that makes sense. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my stripes, and I'm gonna go back to this little guy right here. All right, so I'm gonna do a two-color stripe on this one now. So this is already dry, and you should know that if your airbrush color takes longer than this to dry, you're probably putting on too much color. So we get this question a lot. You know, my airbrush color 20 minutes later is still tacky. Usually that's because you have sprayed way too much. And if you just do a nice light coat, this will dry within just a few minutes. So for this one, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my stencil back on, but I'm going to cover where the pink was with the stencil. So now I've only exposed the white bits, and now I'm gonna spray the orange there. So you will get a tiny bit of overlap, but not too bad. So again, I'm gonna go aim straight down. It doesn't take much. That's it, I'm done. Pull this off, and now you have this cute two-tone stripe. And what's fun about this technique is that if you were doing flood icing, or you were trying to stencil, let's say you're trying to get this same colorway with icing, you wouldn't really be able to do it, because if you flooded your cookie with either pink or the orange, you wouldn't actually be able to stencil with an airbrush that other color on top. It just wouldn't have the same vibrancy. So having it over the white is what makes this pop and unusual. And we know if we tried to pipe the different colors, you can do that. But again, it takes time. You have to wait in between the colors to dry. You have to mix all those colors. So that's a nice, easy way to make 2 different colors stand out like that. And you can, these are great as is. You can pipe over these. You could stencil over these. If you have something you want to write on it, like Happy Easter, something like that. All right, so then I'm going to go back to this egg. This is the one I stenciled this way. I'm going to just turn it this way, and now we're going to do a cute gingham on the diagonal. And where the colors overlap, you'll get kind of a different variant too. Isn't that cute? So cute.
Beautiful.
Super color. How are we doing questions?
No questions from Facebook.
I think we're good. Someone wants to know how much the airbrush is.
So the airbrush is $199.95.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna go back to this one and just show you how I did this other design. So now what I'm doing is I'm looking at where I had put this. Probably I would clean a stencil in between, but for the sake of time, I won't. So now I'm going to line up my open parts of the flower in between where I already airbrushed. So this might take just a second. Okay. Voila, isn't that cute? Super cute, right?
Definitely.
Yes.
It looks so much harder when you
Than
look at the
it is.
cookie. And then
Right?
you make it look
That's
so
not
simple.
hard. You could do that. You all could do that. Let me see. Is there another one I wanted to show?
Tammy says this is very helpful to see this process.
Oh, good. Oh, and while this is damp, I had some of this over here. If you wanted to take some edible glitter, you could spray this on top while this airbrush is still damp. And this is the Roxy Rich Super Pearl. That will stick to the airbrush, give you a nice little finish. So that's something you could easily do to dress it up too. And then I was going to show you one other technique, these ombre techniques. Let's see. I'm going to do 2 other things, and then we'll call it. But feel free to ask more questions. Actually, I won't use that. So to do something like this is also super easy. You are going to, I'm using my turntable just in case, but if you just want to grab half of a cookie to do something like this, you want to come at it a little bit lower, start on this end, as opposed to coming like this, and just start real light so you can see where you're going. This takes a little practice to know where the color's going to land, and then slowly start to move your way up. So you get this nice kind of ombre effect. And then I'm going to switch over to the pink, and we can do the top. So now same thing, I'm going to aim kind of low, come this way at it, start with the corner, and then lightly kind of make my way towards the middle. That's it. Isn't that pretty? So again, it's something you couldn't really do with icing, so it's a nice technique to use. This could be a great background to something else you want to pipe on top, or it looks pretty just as is.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
One was about the glitter. Is it better to use the glitter dust on a wet cookie versus one that's already dried? Like a freshly airbrushed cookie?
Oh, do you mean like a flood, when it's flood iced?
No, didn't we just spray glitter?
We
on one
did,
of
but the airbrush was still damp. So
Yes.
it needs something to stick to. It doesn't
Yes,
have a
sorry,
lot
I
to
didn't
stick
word
to
that.
it. But yeah, so I sprayed this on while it was damp. If I sprayed this on, one of these that's completely dry, some of it might stick, but not as much.
Okay. And then, do you mix the airbrush color with anything or just use as it is?
You use it straight out of the bottle. If you want to mix colors, you can. So that is something you can do if you want to create a custom color. You could do that in a little bowl, in a like a flip top container, bottle.
Top bottle.
Bottle. You could also turn any color you want into a shimmer by mixing a shimmer pearl with a little drop of color. So that's something else you can do. So if you think, oh, I wish I had a pink shimmer, but you have pink and you have shimmer, you have a pink shimmer. So you just need to do that. Mix it in a bowl separate, and it only takes a couple drops of the pink. So the ratio is not going to be half and half, but it depends on how dark you want the shimmer to be too. So that's something fun you could experiment with.
Renee just got her airbrush and
Yay.
wants to know if we share our icing recipe, and we do at thecookiecontest.com. Just look in tutorials and recipes.
Yes, we have a whole bunch of recipes back there, and there are videos too on how to make it. You got anything else?
A lot of questions about specifically how to clean airbrush, so I feel like we might need to do another live
That's another
live
one.
series
Yes.
about how to do your
can
airbrush.
100% do that. Yes, we have a lot to say about that too.
Yes.
Karen wants to know how long they need to wait for dry time after airbrushing before adding any details.
So really just a few minutes. Like I said before, like this dries really quickly. I just did this one. This is already dry. So you could stencil over this. If you were going to stencil something, you could pipe over it. Again, if it takes a really long time for your airbrush color to dry, probably you're spraying too much. So keep that in mind. Less is more. Just light layers. Do multiple light layers. Don't, open it all at once. You know what? Let me actually show you what not to do, since we have a couple questions about this. So let's say I'm going to stencil this, and I'm going to do it in a way that I don't recommend. Don't try this at home, kids. All right, so we're going to use this stencil, and this is what I don't recommend.
Oh boy.
Okay, a couple of things before I remove this I'm going to point out. See how you can see the colors all beaded up over the stencil? Even if you start to see that in a really a subtle way, that probably means you have too much color. If you notice when I was airbrushing before, the stencil never really actually looked wet. Now I was really aggressive. When I pull this off, you can see there's a lot of overspray. This is going to take a while to dry because there's so much color on that. So this is what you don't want to do. So again, all this color that's beaded up on the stencil, if you even start to see a little bit of that, back off or clean your stencil, because every time you use the same stencil and spray it again, the next layer of airbrush is just kind of adding on top of the color that was already there and like liquefying it again. So that might, if you feel like on your airbrushing, especially with stencils, like your first two are great, and then the next ones have a little bit of smudging around the edges of the stencil opening, it's time to wash your your stencil. So wash the stencil, and that'll hopefully solve that problem.
Perfect.
Good? Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so we have a whole week of doing this. Yay! All right, so this will also be reposted. So if you can watch this again, and we can also monitor comments or questions you have after the fact. So if you're watching this live, thank you for being with us. If you are going to watch the repeat, thank you for watching the repeat. And then tomorrow, we will be live again at noon with Will. That's her nickname. Her name is Wilmelin. Did I say it right? No, shoot, I didn't say it right. I'm such an idiot. She just told me, and I practiced a lot. Okay, Will's going to be live tomorrow. She's going to be making PYO cookies, giving you tips and tricks on stenciling, show you how to use the black instant icing, show you how to use PYO palettes. So that's tomorrow at noon. And then Wednesday, I'll be back to talk about packaging. Thursday, Sarah's going to be live talking about doing florals. And then Friday, I'll be back live doing layering stencils using royal icing. So a little bit more of stencil content. So thanks you guys for joining us. I hope you had fun, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Good job.